And welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge. I am your host, Richard Holdridge. What a fantastic intro by our producer, Chris Gates over there. Don't forget that starting August the 13th at noon, I'm going to be on the platform of Georgia Alabama Sports Live. I cannot believe that we are 7 days away from the start of high school football. I couldn't think of anybody better to get on the Sports Beat than to talk high school football up in Troup County. He covers everything Troup County and the surrounding areas for BeeTV Sports. I've had him on the show before, but please welcome to the Sports Beat once again, Kevin Eckleberry.
How's it going, Richard? I can't believe you mentioned the first game's coming up in a week. And it's pretty cool that Lagrange High School is actually going to be in that first game in the Corky Kell Classic on a Wednesday afternoon in August at 4:30. So that's going to be fun. But I appreciate you having me on, man. I can't believe it's time for high school football, and I cannot wait.
Yeah, Kevin, I cannot wait either. You should be honored that the first high school football game is going to be the Lagrange Grangers taking on Douglas of Atlanta up at Kell High School, part of the Corky Kell Dave Hunter Classics. You going to make your way up there to Lagrange or to Marietta?
Oh, I will absolutely be there for that. And obviously 2 days later, I'll be at Barron Stadium in Rome because Callaway's playing in the Corky Kell Classic as well against a really good Cass team. I think it's a 5 o'clock game on the 16th. So yeah, I can't wait for both those games. It's really terrific for Lagrange. Obviously, an incredible tradition-rich program, the second most wins in the history of Georgia. So it's a incredible platform for them to kind of be the focal point of football in Georgia on that day, and the same for the Callaway Cavaliers. So it's going to be a fun week, and the Troup Tigers open at Villa Rica on August 16th, Friday as well. So yeah, man, we're a week away from putting the pads on and playing for real.
Well, Kevin, let's talk about last season because all three teams in Troup County made runs in the playoffs. Let's start with Lagrange. They make it to the second round of the playoffs. They did lose to Benedictine down in Savannah, which, Benedictine has always had a tradition of winning state championships for 4A. Well, now Lagrange is down in 3A. And, we had our media days, and we were talking, because they did away with 7A, a lot of these schools that were 5A are now 4A, and they're 4A and 3A, and that's really what happened with Lagrange and Troup County. But what do you think, Lagrange building off that momentum from last year? And by the way, fantastic job with the media days covered by BeeTV Sports. I know the WRBL's Jack Patterson was up there. Really, was that something that you wanted to do for the longest time, is to have a media day for the schools in Troup County?
I did. Obviously, it's nothing new. A lot of cities and communities do that, but we had not had one in Troup County. So I thought it'd be a really fun way to spotlight, three incredible programs. I mean, you think about it, in Troup County, there are three public school programs: Callaway, Lagrange, and Troup. And they're all three incredibly successful, which is not an easy thing to do. And so I thought it'd be a really fun way to spotlight the coaches and the student athletes at those schools and the programs. And April Ross, who owns BeeTV, she said, "Yeah, let's do it." So we got that set up, and it was a ton of fun. Yeah, we had a great time doing it. I appreciate you mentioning that, Richard.
Well, Kevin, I want to tell you, if I wasn't on vacation, I would be there representing Georgia Alabama Sports Live, which, by the way, that game week 2, August the 23rd, Troup County is coming down to Harris County as that rivalry between these two border counties. We will have that game on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. Just to let you know, Kevin, just so you can let the Troup County audience know that, we cover Troup County as well on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. But let's go ahead and get back to Lagrange because, Coach Matt Napier, he's got a team. Malachi Fanning Render is back from injury. Or what are some of the other key players that are going to be back in Lagrange? And really, what are the expectations for Lagrange in the new reclassification coming into this season?
Yeah, it's interesting. Lagrange and Troup are both going to be in Region 2 AAA, which is an incredible region. I mean, it's just it's stacked top to bottom. there are going to be, some good teams that are going to be left out of the state playoffs this year because of how good that region is. But when you look at Lagrange, to me, that program, it really starts with Matt Napier, the head coach, and what a phenomenal job he's done. He took over that program in 2020, and it was a Lagrange program that had really been struggling. They'd only won 6 games in the previous 4 years before Coach Napier came, and that included a winless season. So he really had kind of a tall task in front of him. But boy, they just started winning right away in 2020, which obviously that season had its own challenges beyond preparing a football team. But they went out that year and made it to the second round of the playoffs, and they've been a consistent winner since then. The past 4 years, they've been in the playoffs 4 straight years. They've won a couple of playoff games. Last year, they actually tied for first place in the region with Stars Mill and lost out on that on the tiebreaker. But they do have a lot of players to replace. I mean, they were hit hard by graduation. I think they lost, about 15 or 16 starters, and most of those guys are going to be playing college football. So it's a lot of key players to replace. But you mentioned Malachi Fannin-Render, who I think has the potential to be one of the best players in the state of Georgia this year. He's unfortunately for Malachi, he's had a couple of really serious injuries, so he really hasn't had a full season yet. When he's been on the field and performed, he has been really unstoppable. So I know his hope and everybody's hope for Malachi is that he can have, one season where he is a senior now. So a season where he's healthy and he can come out and show people what a 100% Malachi Fannin-Render looks like. And to me, he's a Division I running back. He's that good. So I know talking to Coach Matt Napier, I kind of jokingly said, hey, not that you need my advice, but call a lot of plays for Malachi this year. And he certainly is. And he's going to be fun to watch. And they've got a lot of talent around him. They've got a new quarterback this year, which is going to be interesting. Dylan Barber is his name. He's transferred in. So they're looking forward to seeing him play in a kind of a veteran offensive line, which will help, and some nice skill players. And defensively, they've got some really outstanding players coming back. I know Noah Outland and Harris Grace are 2 incredible linebackers. You won't find many better linebacker tandems than those 2. And Caden Sutton, the defensive back for Lagrange, is a veteran guy who's a really outstanding player. But at this point, Coach Napier kind of has the program in a place where they lose guys, but they do such an outstanding job of preparing them to move into the lineup. And the middle school program, led by Coach Marcus Blandenberg, is first class as well. So the program's really at a place now where it's kind of, you lose guys, but you plug the next one in and keep on rolling. So I know the expectation always at Lagrange is to compete at a high level, get to the playoffs and hopefully make a run at the playoffs. And the one thing they haven't done is they haven't gotten past that second round yet under Coach Napier. So I know they'd love to make that happen this year. So I think it's going to be a fun season for Lagrange. I think they're going to be really good. They're going to be tested because of how good this region is. So it's going to be fun. But I know talking to Coach Napier and those guys, they can't wait to get out there and show people what Lagrange High football is all about.
And they do get a couple of extra days to prepare for the home opener on August the 23rd at Callaway Stadium, where they will take on Early County. Their first region test. The team that won the state championship 2 years ago, the home of Calvin Johnson, Sandy Creek, is now in this region. And then Trinity Christian is in the region, but Kevin, with the new playoff format, let's say if Trinity Christian is second in the region, they will give the number 2 seed to the third team, or some way they do that. I actually had John Nelson on the show, and so he broke down the playoff scenario. I think it's going to be based off rank, but you don't have to compete with Trinity Christian for a playoff spot because they're going to be going into the private bracket. But then you got Fayette County. They were in the region last year. Spalding, Whitewater was in the region last year, which, by the way, they do play Carver in the opener. Mary Persons, which we saw completely demolish Columbus last year. Mary Persons has always had a tradition of winning down in Forsyth. Besides the game against Troup County, which is considered a road game, but the Lagrange fans are going to be packing the visitor side of Callaway Stadium on October the 18th. What contests do you look forward to the most seeing the Grangers against an opponent at Callaway Stadium?
Well, you mentioned right off the bat that Sandy Creek game. That's going to be so much fun. That program is just competing at an incredibly high level for so long now, and I know they've been in the region before with Troup, so I've gotten a chance to watch them quite a bit over the years. So that's really going to be fun to see that matchup. And in another team, Spalding County is a team that went to the third round of the playoffs last year and beat Troup in the second round. So that's going to be really fun. Mary Persons is going to be somebody different that Lagrange doesn't usually play, so that's going to be fun. And that and Upson Lee's always a really good program as well. And then the Troup game is just, there's nothing like that. I know that was my introduction when I came to Lagrange in 2002. That was my introduction to high school football here. That was the first game I covered. And in Callaway Stadium, every seat was full. Every standing spot was taken as well. And just the passion and the community for that game, to me, is really unmatched. So it's going to be fun. I mean, you just look at the schedule. It's hard to find a week where, well, we can kind of relax this week and maybe coast a little bit. It's just not really going to happen this year with a couple of tough early season non-region games and then the region schedule. So every Friday night, or in next week's case, every Wednesday, is just going to be so much fun. Every week's going to be a test, and it's really going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
All right, Kevin, let's talk about Troup County. 2 years ago, they went to the Final Four. Head coach Tanner Glisson always has a team that has players that go on and play at the next level, like a Teo Todd, who is a 3-year starter. He's graduated. A Qua Birdsong, a Noah Dixon. What does Troup County look like this year? Does it look like a rebuild, or did Coach Glisson reload with a very talented team that's fresh off the bat taking on Villa Rica, and then they're taking on Harris County in week 2?
Well, first of all, you mentioned some of those players. They had an incredible senior class last year, just extraordinary group of players. Teo Todd, the quarterback, and it was so unfortunate that he went down with an injury about halfway through the season, a foot injury, and was unable to come back. So I just hated that Teo was not able to finish his senior year, but he's now at Georgia Southern. And talking to his dad, he thinks he's going to get to play some this year, which is really going to be fun. And Qua Birdsong, the linebacker, he's down at Central Florida now. Noah Dixon, wide receiver, defensive back, he's at Clemson. So and a handful of other guys who are playing college football as well. So it's hard to replace those kinds of players. It really is. And at Troup, they've got a bunch of new starters this year, but kind of like at Lagrange, what Coach Tanner Glisson has done here at Troup has been really incredible as well. This is actually his 10th season now as head coach at Troup, which is kind of hard for me to believe he's been there that long. In his first year, and was a tough one. They actually went 1-9 his first year in 2015, and then they've been in the state playoffs every year since then. They won a region championship in 2022, which was Troup's first region title since 1987, which is a long time. They've been to the Final Four twice. 2018, they lost to Blessed Trinity. In 2022, they lost to Benedictine down in Savannah. And last year they won 9 games, and like I said, they were just hit so hard by injuries. When they got to that second round of the playoffs against Spalding, obviously they did not have Teo, and Noah Dixon was hurt. Logan Sinkfield was hurt. So they were actually down. I think Coach Glisson said to their third quarterback. So it was a tough situation. But when you look at this team, yeah, there's going to be a lot of players who are kind of new to having starting roles or roles where they're key contributors, but they're guys who have played a lot on Friday night, and they came from a really strong middle school program at Long Cane Middle School, so it's a team. Coach Glisson really likes the potential of this team. It's a lot of kind of unproven players, but guys who definitely have the talent. There's no doubt about that. They just need to get out there and get their feet wet. I know it reminds me a little bit of what the baseball team went through this past spring. They made a run to the quarterfinals, and that was a team also that was almost brand new in a lot of ways. So it's kind of similar to that, but they'll kind of like Lagrange. They have such a tough, challenging schedule in the region and out of the region. They play Villa Rica, Harris County, who's coming off a really great season last year. So he's going to be relying on a lot of younger, inexperienced players, but Coach Glisson has done an incredible job there. He loves the coaching staff he's put together. So it's going to be really fun to watch this Troup team develop.
Kevin, and now Callaway. We know what Coach Pete Wiggins has done for more than 2 decades, built a powerhouse up in Troup County. State champions in 2021. They finally got over the hump after making at least a quarterfinal and semifinal appearances. It seems like that is the standard at Callaway, is to at least get to the semifinals. They did lose to Fitzgerald, a rematch of the 2021 state championship in the quarterfinals. Very close game, 17-14. But when you look at the Callaway Cavaliers this season, because they are in a new region, they did go undefeated in their region last year. Kevin, they went 9-3 last year, but we all know they went 10-2 because they flat out beat Cedartown. It just happened to be a forfeit loss. That Troup County game could have gone either way. By the way, they're not playing Troup County this year, in which that feels weird. I know that feels weird for the whole community of Troup County. But they are in a region. I'm looking at some of the teams. I mean, you've got Pike County out of Zebulon. They can be a powerhouse. I'm familiar with Rutland because they were in the same region with Kendrick, Spencer, and Jordan last year. West side of Macon. So you're taking on teams down in Macon. Jackson, which, by the way, the Hardaway Hawks will face Jackson in week 1. You got Morgan County. I don't know a whole lot about Morgan County, but that rivalry with Opelika is back. That is always a one-possession game. That is going to be after the Corky Kell Classic. They're going to go to Bulldog Stadium. I talked to Van Riggs, the voice of the Bulldogs. They have renovated Bulldog Stadium. We expect the Callaway fans to make that trip. Their first home game, September the 6th, taking on Cook of Adel, which is just outside of Tifton. I know that's going to be a tough matchup. And then Columbia, a team that they're familiar with from the region last year. So looking at what Coach Pete Wiggins has, I know Deshaun Coleman was their starting quarterback. Is he back, or did he graduate? Or I think he actually left, right, Kevin?
Yeah, Deshaun Coleman has graduated. It's kind of weird. They've had a Coleman at quarterback for, I think, like 7 straight years, because his brother Demetrius was the quarterback on the state championship team.
Right. So. And really, Callaway has had great players. You always mention Tank Bigsby. Every time he does something great for Jacksonville, I know you're posting on social media. I always was a fan of Terry Godwin. That incredible catch against Notre Dame in 2017, the wide receiver for Georgia. He went on to play for the Carolina Panthers. Callaway football, which has always been one of the top teams in 2A. And when I look at how the reclassification was set up, because I got excited, Kevin, because Carver is now in 2A. This was a team that went to the Final Four in 3A. This was a team that went to the state championship in 4A. This is what we want to see, especially in the Chattahoochee Valley. We want to see a Carver-Callaway state championship. How big would that be for the Chattahoochee Valley and the Lagrange area, which we're all part of the Chattahoochee Valley, but for the people down in Columbus and for the people up in Lagrange, how big would that be if we had a Carver-Callaway state championship?
That would be something else, wouldn't it? It's funny. They used to be in the same region. It's been, I think, more than 10 years ago. They were both in the same region, and those were really, really fun games. That would be something else. But I'm glad you mentioned the Opelika game, because that has really turned into such a fun rivalry, pretty short period of time. And you're right. Every game they've played has gone right down to the wire. I know Callaway won, won on a field goal one year. Another year, Tank Bigsby actually ran for more than 300 yards against Opelika. So that's a really fun rivalry. And I hate that Callaway's not playing Troup because that's been a really fun game as well, but the schedules just couldn't sync up this year because of Callaway playing in the Corky Kell Classic. And Troup really wanted to play Harris County. That's a game they always like to have on their schedule because Harris County is a team Troup's played more than any other in their history. So that's such a fun rivalry. But you look at Callaway. To me, it starts with Coach Pete Wiggins, who's going into his 20th season now as head coach at Callaway, which again is hard for me to believe.
It's amazing.
He was there for 3 seasons as an assistant coach under Claude Giddens when he came from Alabama to work with Coach Giddens. And then in 2005, he took over and they made the playoffs their second year. And they've just done nothing but win since then. It's pretty remarkable. Last year, they made it to the quarterfinals. And before that, they made it to the semifinals, at least the semifinals, for 4 straight years, which is so hard to do. And of course, in 2021, they won the state championship, which is, and being on the field that day and watching Coach Wiggins celebrate and all those players was one of my favorite moments at the time I was a sports writer for the newspapers. But in my career, one of my favorite moments. It's just, it was so special. And you look at this year's team, the expectation is what it always is for Callaway. They're expecting to compete for a region title, and then when they get to state, they expect to make a run and possibly win the whole thing. And they've definitely got the talent to do it. They lost some key players as well. You mentioned Deshaun Coleman at quarterback, but I tell you, one of the players who's really going to spark this year, I think, is Blake Harrington. He was a quarterback for Callaway. He was the backup last year. And he's a junior, and he's a really special athlete. When he got the chance to play last year, he really turned heads. Just a two-way player, a great arm, and can really make plays with his feet as well. So I don't think they're going to lose much at quarterback with Blake. He's really gifted and just really talented offensive players around him. Bryson Sanders, who's the brother of Braylon Sanders, if you remember him, the wide receiver. Tyron Buggs, a really talented running back, and just up and down on defense. They've got experienced guys who know what it takes to succeed on a Friday night. I know Zay Anderson's a linebacker who's been their leading tackler for a couple years. So, but again, it starts at the top with Coach Wiggins. When you have that guy leading the way, you just believe anything is possible. And it is going to be kind of odd this year. His defensive coordinator since 2005 has been Dusty Hubbard. That Coach Hubbard actually stepped down as defense coordinator. He's still the baseball coach, but he's not going to be coaching football anymore. So it's and Casey Smith has stepped into that position. So it's going to be kind of weird for me to not see Coach Hubbard at football practice anymore. And he was always one of those guys on a Friday night. You could always hear Coach Dusty Hubbard. His voice has a way of carrying above everybody else. So but he's got a great staff, guys he trusts, and I know this Callaway team. I would not be surprised to see them as one of the final 4 teams, and maybe even one of the last 2 teams this year. And like I said, it all starts next Friday against Cass. It's a really good team. Not a great football tradition there, but they have a really nice team with a quarterback who's one of the best players in the state. So that's going to be a great test right out of the box, and then you get Opelika. So it's going to be a fun season, and I can't wait to see what Coach Wiggins' guys can do this year.
Well, Kevin, I cannot wait to see you on the sidelines at Callaway Stadium on Thursday nights and Friday nights, and getting all the highlights. I'll try to make sure to get score updates. I know that you'll be promoting Lagrange, Callaway, and Troup County, and we expect you to be down there in Hamilton for that game on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. We'll make sure to give you a shout out. It's Troup County, it is Harris County, August the 23rd. That game will be on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. Rick Beach from Kutsu Sports will be on the call. By the way, I will be calling Glenwood Valley. I know Valley is a team you cover on BeeTV Sports, so I'll make sure to give them some love. Before I let you go, Kevin, what are some other teams that you do cover for BeeTV Sports? I know Heard County is a team you cover. What about over at Lynette, Valley, Lafayette? What are some other teams you cover?
Yeah, you mentioned Heard County. We do. I really enjoy covering them. Just a terrific program as well. Coach Shane Lassiter does a great job there. Actually, in Lagrange, there's an 8-man program, Lafayette Christian School. They won a couple of state championships. So
Oh, that's
really,
right. They're in the gaps.
right. So they do a great job. And then we cover the Chambers County schools, basically. Lynette, Lafayette, Valley, Chambers Academy, who's a powerhouse over there in Alabama, and Springwood School, which is a terrific program as well. So that's really fun. And this can be the second year we're going to do our pregame show as well before kind of our game of the week this year. We'll have an hour-long pregame show at the stadium where we have guests on and that sort of thing. So that's a lot of fun, and I'll be doing post-game reactions and that sort of thing. So it's going to be so much fun. Friday nights during football season, that's what I live for. I know you do too. It does not get any better than that. And man, I'm so excited that we're a week away.
I cannot believe it. 1 week away. We are going to be hitting the ground running. I know Friday nights we are going to be completely busy. Kevin, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule, being a guest on the Sports Beat once again. Would love to have you back on a couple more times during the season just to get an outlook on how the teams are doing. And best of luck to all the teams in Troup County, all the teams you cover. I know we want to see them do well, and looking forward to seeing you back here on the show.
That's awesome. Thanks, Richard. And thanks for all you do as well.
I do appreciate that. Kevin Eckleberry, everybody, from BeeTV Sports. Thank you, everybody, so much for downloading the episode and watching us on Facebook Live. As this has been the Sports Beat with Richard Holdridge signing off. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.